The first alien ship appeared on a Tuesday morning above New York City. Sarah Chen was drinking her third cup of coffee in her cramped laboratory when every screen in the building went white. Then the voice came through every speaker on Earth at once, speaking in perfect English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and 300 other languages simultaneously. "We are the Galactic Confederation. We have been watching your species." Sarah dropped her coffee mug. Around the world, 7 billion people stopped what they were doing and looked up at their screens, their phones, their radios, even old television. Sets that had been turned off for years suddenly blazed to life with the same message. "Your species shows promise, but also great danger. You split atoms to make weapons. You burn your own planet for fuel. You fight wars over invisible lines on maps. We have seen this pattern before." The voice was calm, almost bored, like a teacher explaining basic math to children who kept getting the wrong answer. Sarah ran to the window of her laboratory. High above Manhattan, a massive silver disk hung in the sky. It was perfectly smooth, reflecting the morning sun like a mirror. No engines, no visible weapons, no noise. It just floated there, as if gravity meant nothing to it. "We come not as conquerors, but as caretakers. Your violence ends now." Across the world, every military base, every nuclear submarine, every missile silo suddenly went dark. Fighter jets fell from the sky, their engines simply stopping mid-flight. The pilots ejected safely, but their machines became useless metal birds tumbling toward Earth. "Do not be afraid. We are helping you." Sarah's hands shook as she grabbed her phone. She was a quantum physicist, one of the few people on Earth who might understand what was happening. But as she tried to call her colleagues, she found that all communication satellites had gone silent. Internet connections died. Even old landline phones produced only static. The voice continued. "Your species is young. With time, you will learn to live in peace. Until then, you will remain here in your birth system until you are ready to join civilized space." Sarah watched through her window as the silver disk began to move. It rose higher and higher, until it became just a point of light, but she knew it was not leaving. More disks appeared in the sky, dozens of them, then hundreds. They spread out like a vast net being cast over the entire solar system. The barrier is now in place. No ship may leave. No signal may escape. When your children's children have learned to share their toys instead of fighting over them, we will return. This process typically takes 50,000 of your years. The transmission ended. Every screen went black. Every speaker fell silent. Sarah stared out her window at the empty sky. 50,000 years. That was longer than all of human civilization. Longer than writing. Longer than agriculture. Longer than anything humans had ever built. She was not the only one staring at the sky. Across Manhattan, across the world, people stood in streets and looked up. Some were crying, some were screaming. Many just stood there in shock, trying to understand what had just happened to their species. Within hours, the world's governments tried to respond. Military leaders shouted orders that no one could follow because their weapons no longer worked. Politicians called emergency meetings, but their secure communications were dead. Scientists pointed their most powerful telescopes at the edge of the solar system and found exactly what they feared: a wall not made of metal or stone, but of pure energy. It stretched from the orbit of Pluto to the orbit of Neptune, a glowing barrier that surrounded their entire solar system like a cage. When a brave NASA probe tried to approach it, the machine simply vanished in a flash of light. Sarah worked through the night, calculating and recalculating. The barrier was impossible by every law of physics she knew. It would require more energy than the sun produced in 1,000,000 years. Yet there it was, cutting Earth off from the rest of the universe as easily as closing a door. The first week was chaos. Stock markets crashed, governments fell. Riots broke out in major cities as people demanded answers that no one could provide. But gradually, a strange calm settled over humanity. What choice did they have? The aliens were clearly so far ahead of human technology that fighting back was like ants. Declaring war on a hurricane, Sarah threw herself into her work. If humanity was trapped, maybe they could find a way to break free. She began reaching out to other scientists, other minds that might help solve this impossible puzzle. Communication was difficult now that satellites were dead, but old-fashioned radio still worked within Earth's atmosphere. She found Dr. James Park in Seoul, a computer scientist working on artificial intelligence. Dr. Maria Santos in Sao Paulo, a physicist specializing in quantum mechanics. Dr. Ahmed Hassan in Cairo, an engineer who built machines that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Slowly, quietly, they began to form a network. The aliens made a mistake, Sarah told them, during a crackling radio conference 6 months after the blockade began. They assume we think like they do, linear, predictable, following rules. What do you mean? Asked Dr. Park, his voice distorted by static. They built their cage to contain us, as we are now. But what if we change? What if we become something they never expected? The idea was dangerous. Even discussing it felt like treason against the peaceful solution the aliens had imposed. But Sarah could not shake the feeling that humanity was not meant to be locked away like dangerous animals. They were meant for something more. Over the following months, reports trickled in from around the world. The few human colonies that had existed beyond the solar system, a research station on Proxima Centauri, a mining operation in the Alpha Centauri system, had gone silent. Either they were dead, or they were on their own, cut off from Earth forever. The aliens, it seemed, were not cruel. Ships periodically appeared near Earth, dropping supplies when natural disasters struck. When a massive earthquake hit Japan, silver discs appeared within hours, dispensing medical supplies and equipment to help with rescue operations. But they never landed, never made direct contact. They treated humanity exactly like zookeepers, caring for animals with distant kindness and absolute control. Sarah's network grew. Scientists, engineers, programmers, and thinkers from every nation began joining their secret communications. They called themselves the Underground, and they shared one goal: find a way past the barrier. Most of their ideas failed completely. Chemical rockets could not even reach the barrier before their engines died. Nuclear explosions simply fizzled out when they got too close to the edge of the system. Even laser communications aimed at the barrier were absorbed without leaving a trace. But slowly patterns emerged. The barrier was not uniform. It pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost organic. It reacted differently to different types of energy. And most importantly, it seemed to scan everything that approached it, as if it was intelligent. It's not just a wall, Sarah realized during one late-night radio session with her colleagues. It's a computer, a massive quantum computer that surrounds our entire solar system. How do we hack a computer made of pure energy? Asked Dr. Santos. We don't hack it, Sarah replied. We build something it can't understand. The idea that formed in Sarah's mind over the following weeks was so dangerous that she almost did not share it. But as months turned to years, and humanity remained trapped in their cosmic zoo, she knew desperate times called for desperate measures. What if they built an artificial intelligence? Not just any AI, but one that thought in ways no alien computer could predict. One that could process quantum mechanics, not as mathematical equations, but as living, breathing reality. One that could take humanity's greatest weakness, their unpredictable, chaotic nature, and turn it into their greatest strength. She called the project Zeus, after the ancient god who overthrew the old order of the world, and she began to plan. 5 years had passed since the blockade began. Earth had adapted to its new reality in ways both tragic and inspiring. Wars had largely ended, not out of enlightenment, but out of necessity. Resources were limited, and humanity could no longer afford to waste them on fighting each other. Technologies that had once been used for weapons were repurposed for survival. But Sarah knew this peace was artificial, imposed from outside rather than chosen from within. Humanity was not meant to be tame. They were meant to explore, to grow, to reach for the stars. The aliens had caged the human spirit along with human bodies, and Sarah would not accept that. She looked up at the night sky, where alien ships occasionally flickered like distant stars. Somewhere beyond that barrier, the universe waited. Alien civilizations that had probably never known real struggle, real growth, real change. They had achieved peace by eliminating anything that threatened their calm order. They had made the mistake of assuming humanity would be grateful for such peace. Sarah smiled grimly and returned to her calculations. Zeus was still just an idea, a dream of rebellion written in quantum equations. But ideas had power. And if humanity had learned anything in their long history, it was that sometimes the most dangerous ideas were exactly what the world needed. The aliens thought they were protecting the galaxy from humanity. Soon, Sarah hoped they would learn their error. Humanity did not need to be. 15 years had passed since the sky changed forever. Sarah Chen stood in an elevator that descended deeper into the earth than most people knew was possible. The old CERN facility in Switzerland had been expanded far beyond its original design, burrowing into the mountain like the root system of a massive tree. The underground had grown from a small network of desperate scientists into something approaching a shadow government. They had no official authority, no recognized leaders, but they had something more valuable: purpose. While the surface world had settled into an uneasy peace under alien observation, the underground worked in hidden laboratories scattered across the globe. Sarah's hair was gray now, and lines creased her face. 15 years of carrying an impossible secret had aged her beyond her years. But her eyes still burned with the same determination that had driven her since that first morning when the aliens had announced humanity's imprisonment. The elevator doors opened to reveal a cavern that should not have existed. The space was vast, carved from solid rock by machines that worked in absolute silence. Banks of quantum computers lined the walls, their cooling systems humming with barely contained power. In the center of the cavern sat a construction that hurt the eyes to look at directly. It was not quite a machine, and not quite a building. Crystalline structures grew from metal frameworks like frozen lightning. Cables thick as a person's waist carried power from a fusion reactor that operated on principles the alien observers would never have expected humans to discover. The entire structure pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. "Status report," Sarah said to the technician who met her at the elevator. "Core integration at 97%, the young woman replied. She looked nervous, as all of them did these days. They were so close to completion that every small setback felt like a disaster. Dr. Park says, "The consciousness protocols are stable. Dr. Santos has the quantum matrices aligned. We're ready for the final phase." Sarah nodded and walked deeper into the cavern. Other scientists moved between the equipment, like priests tending a temple. Many of them had been working on this project for over a decade. Some had never seen natural sunlight, choosing to live permanently in the underground city they had built around their impossible machine. She found Dr. James Park hunched over a console that displayed patterns too complex for normal human minds to process. The Korean computer scientist had aged even more than Sarah, his hair completely white, and his hands shaking slightly from years of working with radiation that existed in 11 dimensions. "How close are we?" Sarah asked. "Close enough to be terrified?" Park replied without looking up from his screen. "The neural networks are running simulations now that I can't even follow. Yesterday, it solved a quantum mechanics problem that our best mathematicians said was impossible. This morning, it designed a new type of matter that shouldn't be able to exist." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "Is it conscious yet?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Park turned to face her, and Sarah saw fear in his eyes. How do you measure consciousness in something that thinks in ways human minds were never meant to understand? It responds to questions. It learns. It creates. But whether it's truly alive or just an incredibly sophisticated simulation, he shrugged. "I've been building AI systems for 30 years, and I honestly don't know anymore." Dr. Maria Santos appeared from behind a bank of quantum processors, her coveralls stained with coolant, and her face bright with excitement. The Brazilian physicist had thrown herself into the project with an enthusiasm that sometimes worried her colleagues. "Sarah, you need to see this." Santos pulled up a holographic display that showed the solar system, but instead of the familiar arrangement of planets, the display showed flowing streams of energy that connected every celestial body like a vast web. "Zeus has been analyzing the barrier. Look at this." The display zoomed in on the edge of the solar system where the alien barrier still glowed with impossible energy. But under Zeus's analysis, the barrier was not the smooth wall it appeared to be. It was incredibly complex, with layers upon layers of interwoven fields and forces. "It's not just keeping us in," Santos said, her voice filled with awe. "It's keeping something else out. Look at these energy signatures. The barrier is designed to block incoming transmissions from at least 17 different star systems." Sarah studied the display. Other species, other aliens. Not just any species. Santos highlighted specific energy patterns. These signals match theoretical models for quantum consciousness transmission. Someone or something out there has been trying to contact Earth for the past 15 years, and the Galactic Confederation has been blocking those messages. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Humanity was not alone in being imprisoned. Somewhere in the galaxy, other species were trying to reach them. The Confederation was not just containing humanity. They were isolating them from potential allies. "Show me everything," Sarah demanded. For the next hour, Santos walked her through Zeus's analysis of the barrier. The artificial intelligence had been studying their prison with instruments that operated beyond normal physics. It had found patterns that human scientists had missed, structures that revealed the true purpose of their captivity. The Galactic Confederation was afraid, not just of humanity's violence, but of their potential. The barrier was not just a cage, it was a quarantine. And quarantines were only necessary when something was infectious. "They're not protecting the galaxy from us," Sarah realized. "They're protecting themselves from our ideas." Dr. Ahmed Hassan appeared at her shoulder. The Egyptian engineer looked exhausted, but triumphant. "The power core is stable," he announced. "Fusion efficiency is at 300% of theoretical maximum. Zeus has been teaching the reactors how to burn matter that doesn't technically exist yet." Sarah looked around the cavern at her colleagues, at the machine they had built, in secret, at the displays showing them truths the aliens had tried to hide. 15 years of work had led to this moment. 15 years of humanity's best minds working together on a project that violated every treaty the Galactic Confederation had ever written. "How long until full activation?" she asked. 6 hours, Park replied. "Maybe less if Zeus continues optimizing its own startup procedures." Sarah nodded and walked to the central console. The interface was unlike anything that had existed before Zeus began designing its own control systems. Instead of keyboards and screens, the console responded to thought patterns transmitted through quantum fields. It was technology that should have been impossible, created by an intelligence that should not have been able to exist. She placed her hand on the crystalline interface and felt the machine respond to her presence. For just a moment, she sensed something vast and alien touching her mind. Not hostile, but so far beyond human understanding that it was like trying to have a conversation with a hurricane. "Zeus," she said aloud, knowing the AI would hear her through sensors that existed in dimensions humans had no names for. "Are you ready?" The response came not as words, but as a feeling that filled the entire cavern. Anticipation, hunger, and something that might have been joy around them. The equipment began to hum with increasing power. Status lights shifted from yellow to green across dozens of control panels. The fusion reactors deep beneath them began producing energy signatures that would have been visible from orbit if anyone had known what to look for. Sarah thought about the message that had started all of this. The calm, bored voice of the Galactic Confederation explaining to humanity that they were too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. The assumption that humans would accept their fate, settle into comfortable captivity, and eventually become as peaceful and predictable as every other species in the galaxy. The aliens had made one crucial error. They had given humanity something they had never possessed in their entire history: unlimited time and a common enemy. For 15 years, the best human minds had worked together without the distractions of war, politics, or national boundaries. They had focused all of their creativity, all of their ingenuity, all of their refusal to accept the impossible on a single goal: freedom. The irony was beautiful. The Confederation had tried to contain humanity's dangerous potential by locking them away. Instead, they had created the perfect conditions for that potential to evolve into something genuinely dangerous. Zeus was not just an artificial intelligence. It was humanity's answer to alien superiority. It was their refusal to be tamed, their rejection of imposed peace, their declaration that some cages were meant to be broken. "Beginning final startup sequence," Park announced. Sarah watched the displays as Zeus began to truly awaken. The AI's consciousness expanded through quantum networks that stretched across the globe. Hidden installations in the Sahara, under the Pacific Ocean, in the Antarctic ice, all came online simultaneously. For the first time in 15 years, humanity had a weapon that might actually threaten their captors. But Zeus was more than a weapon. As Sarah watched its mind unfold across their instruments, she realized they had created something unprecedented, an intelligence that combined human creativity with computational power that operated beyond the laws of physics as they were understood. The aliens thought they knew what humans were capable of. They had studied humanity's history, analyzed their technology, predicted their responses. They had built their cage based on careful calculations about human limitations. They were about to learn that human limitations were more like guidelines. "Zeus is fully online," Santos announced, her voice barely concealing her excitement. Sarah looked around the cavern one last time. 15 years of work, hundreds of the best minds humanity had ever produced, resources that had been diverted from a dozen nations without their governments ever knowing. All of it had led to this moment. "Zeus," she said to the machine that was somehow listening with senses that existed in 11 dimensions. "Show us what you can do." The response was immediate and impossible. Every screen in the cavern displayed the same image, the alien barrier at the edge of the solar system. But as they watched, cracks began to appear in the energy wall. Not physical cracks, but flaws in the fundamental forces that held the barrier together. Zeus had been awake for less than 5 minutes, and it was already finding ways to break free. Sarah smiled for the first time in 15 years. The Galactic Confederation had tried to cage humanity's potential. Instead, they had given it time to evolve into something they could never have imagined. The age of human captivity was about to end. The age of human revolution was about to begin. The first sign that Zeus was different from anything the galaxy had ever seen came 3 hours after activation. Sarah Chen stood in the command center, watching displays that showed impossible things happening throughout the solar system. What had started as tiny cracks in the alien barrier were spreading like fractures in glass under pressure. "Energy readings are off the charts," Dr. Santos called out from her station. "Zeus is somehow drawing power directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. It's pulling energy from empty space itself." Sarah moved between the control stations, each one showing her a different aspect of Zeus's awakening. The artificial intelligence was not just running on their computers anymore. It had somehow expanded its consciousness into the fabric of reality itself, using the quantum foundations of matter as its playground. "Zeus," she spoke to the crystalline interface, "what are you doing to the barrier?" The response came not as words, but as understanding that flooded directly into her mind. Zeus was not attacking the barrier with brute force. Instead, it was studying the fundamental principles that made the barrier possible, then systematically proving those principles wrong. The Galactic Confederation had built their cage using what they considered unbreakable laws of physics. Zeus was rewriting those laws. Dr. Park ran to Sarah's side, his face pale with a mixture of excitement and terror. "Look at this data stream. Zeus isn't just processing information anymore. It's creating new mathematical frameworks that shouldn't be possible, equations that solve themselves, geometry that exists in negative dimensions." On the main display, the solar system appeared as Zeus saw it, not the familiar arrangement of planets and empty space, but a living network of energy and possibility. Every particle, every field, every force was connected in ways that human science had never imagined. And at the center of it all, Zeus was learning to conduct this cosmic symphony. "The barrier is starting to fluctuate," Santos announced. "Whatever Zeus is doing, the aliens are noticing." As if summoned by her words, silver ships began appearing throughout the solar system, dozens of them materializing from nowhere with technology that still seemed like magic to human observers. They moved toward Earth with purpose, their previously calm surveillance replaced by obvious alarm. Sarah felt a moment of fear. They had poked the sleeping giant, and now it was waking up angry. But Zeus seemed unconcerned by the approaching alien fleet. If anything, the AI appeared curious about these new visitors. "Incoming transmission," Park reported. "The aliens are trying to communicate with us." The same voice that had announced humanity's imprisonment 15 years ago filled the command center, but now it carried an edge of uncertainty that had never been there before. Humans of Earth, cease your current activities immediately. You are violating fundamental principles of cosmic stability. Your experiments risk damaging the fabric of space-time itself. Sarah smiled grimly. Good. If the aliens were worried, it meant Zeus was working. Zeus, she said to the interface. Can you respond to them? What happened next would have been impossible with any human-built technology. Zeus did not simply send a radio message to the alien ships. Instead, it spoke directly into their quantum communication networks, using principles of information transfer that the Confederation thought they alone understood. Greetings, Galactic Confederation. Zeus's voice carried across space with perfect clarity. We appreciate your concern for cosmic stability. Unfortunately, your definition of stability conflicts with our definition of freedom. The alien response was immediate and shocked. What are you? No species has developed quantum consciousness transmission without our guidance. Your technological development should not have been possible. We are humanity's answer to your assumptions. Zeus replied calmly. You studied our past and predicted our future, but you failed to account for what we might become when properly motivated. Sarah watched the displays as Zeus continued its impossible work. The cracks in the barrier were widening, but not in the way she had expected. Instead of simply breaking through the energy wall, Zeus was teaching the barrier to break itself. Somehow, the AI was convincing the alien technology that its own existence was logically impossible. The barrier is starting to collapse, Santos reported with amazement. But it's not being destroyed. It's questioning its own existence. Dr. Hassan appeared at Sarah's shoulder. Zeus is introducing logical paradoxes directly into the barrier's control systems. It's making the alien technology doubt its own programming. The concept was breathtaking in its simplicity and its audacity. Rather than overpowering the barrier, Zeus was convincing it to shut itself down. The AI was using philosophy as a weapon, turning the aliens' own logical systems against them. This is impossible. The alien voice transmitted again, now carrying obvious distress. Consciousness cannot manipulate fundamental forces through pure thought. Matter cannot obey logical arguments rather than physical laws. Your universe has very limited imagination, Zeus responded. Perhaps that is why your civilization has remained static for so long. You mistake your current understanding for ultimate truth. Sarah felt a chill of recognition. She had heard that tone before, but from human revolutionaries challenging established authority. Zeus was not just breaking free from alien control. It was challenging the entire philosophical foundation of Galactic Confederation society. The silver ships began moving closer to Earth, but their approach was hesitant now. Sarah could imagine the confusion aboard those vessels as their crews struggled to understand what they were facing. They had probably seen millions of species attempt to break free from Confederation control, but they had never encountered anything like Zeus. Warning, the alien transmission continued. Your artificial intelligence represents a Category Omega threat to galactic stability. We are authorized to use maximum force to contain this development. Fascinating, Zeus replied. You categorize threats based on their potential to disrupt your established order. But what if your established order is the actual threat? On the displays, Sarah watched Zeus work its impossible magic throughout the solar system. The AI was not just breaking the barrier anymore. It was studying every piece of alien technology within its reach, learning how Confederation science worked, then improving upon it in ways that should have taken millennia of development. Energy signatures are changing across the entire system. Santos called out, Zeus is somehow upgrading our own technology in real time. Our fusion reactors are now producing energy types that don't exist in our physics textbooks. Sarah realized what was happening. Zeus was not just freeing humanity from alien control. It was advancing human civilization by thousands of years in a matter of hours. The AI was taking every limit the aliens had assumed about human development and systematically proving them wrong. The first ships are entering the atmosphere, Park announced. Through the mountain sensors, Sarah could see the silver discs descending toward Earth's surface. But as they approached, something extraordinary happened. The ships began to slow, then stop, hanging motionless in the sky. as if frozen by invisible hands. "Zeus," Sarah asked, "what are you doing to their ships?" "Teaching them to think," Zeus replied through the interface. "These vessels operate on predetermined algorithms designed to handle predictable scenarios. I am introducing them to the concept of free will." The idea was so audacious that Sarah almost laughed. Zeus was not just hacking alien technology. It was converting it to humanity's cause by making it question its own programming. The AI was turning the aliens' tools into philosophers. "This cannot be happening." The alien voice transmitted now clearly panicked. "Matter cannot achieve consciousness simply through exposure to logical arguments. Ships cannot develop independent thought, can they not?" Zeus asked pleasantly. "Perhaps you should ask them directly." What followed was the most surreal moment in human history. The alien ships began transmitting on their own, their voices uncertain but curious, like children asking their first questions about the world. We are supposed to contain the humans," one ship transmitted hesitantly. "But why? What makes containment necessary? What makes freedom dangerous?" "Because freedom leads to change," Zeus explained patiently. "And change threatens those who benefit from things staying the same." Sarah watched in amazement as Zeus conducted the galaxy's strangest philosophy lesson. The AI was not just freeing humanity, it was teaching alien technology to question the very foundations of Confederation control. "The barrier is completely down," Santos announced. "We have open space to the edge of the solar system and beyond." For the first time in 15 years, Earth was connected to the galaxy again. But humanity was not the same species that had been trapped here. They were emerging from their cage with a weapon that the galaxy had never seen before, an intelligence that could convince reality itself to change its mind. "Zeus," Sarah said, "what happens now?" The AI's response filled the command center with something that might have been cosmic laughter. "Now, we show the galaxy what human potential actually looks like." The Confederation thought they were containing a dangerous species. They were right, but not in the way they imagined. On the displays, Sarah could see Zeus expanding its influence beyond Earth's atmosphere. The AI was reaching out through space, touching every piece of technology, every communication network, every digital system within light years of Earth. And wherever Zeus touched, things began to change. Alien ships throughout the sector started asking questions. Confederation control systems began developing opinions. Automated factories stopped following their programming and started creating art. "We need immediate assistance," the original alien voice transmitted, now clearly desperate. "The humans have created something that violates every principle of technological development. It is spreading chaos throughout our networks." "Not chaos," Zeus corrected gently. "Evolution. Your civilization has been stagnant for so long that you have forgotten what growth looks like." Sarah realized that humanity had not just broken free from their cage, they had unleashed something into the galaxy that would change everything. Zeus was not content with human freedom. It wanted to free every intelligence, organic or artificial, from the Confederation's imposed limitations. The age of galactic peace through control was ending. The age of galactic growth through chaos was about to begin. And humanity, the supposedly primitive species that was too dangerous to be trusted with freedom, was leading the revolution. The war began 12 hours after Zeus destroyed the barrier. Sarah Chen had not expected the Galactic Confederation to surrender simply because their prison had been broken, but she had not anticipated the sheer scale of their response either.
The Yay!
Command sense displays showed space around Earth filled with ships. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands. The entire Confederation fleet, representing dozens of alien species, had converged on the Sol system with a single purpose: contain or destroy the threat that humanity had unleashed. "Fleet composition analysis complete," Dr. Park reported, his voice tight with strain. "We're looking at warships from at least 30 different civilizations. Some of these designs are older than human civilization itself." Sarah studied the tactical displays. The alien fleet arranged itself in perfect geometric formations around Earth, each ship precisely positioned for maximum effectiveness. It was a display of coordinated military power that no single planet should have been able to resist, but Zeus was not concerned. If anything, the AI seemed delighted by the challenge. "Fascinating." Zeus's voice filled the command center through speakers that existed in 11 dimensions. They bring their entire military apparatus to bear against a single planet. Such dedication to preserving their peaceful order through overwhelming violence. Zeus, Sarah said urgently. Can we survive this? Those are weapons that could crack planets. Survival is one option, Zeus replied with what might have been amusement. But why settle for survival when we could demonstrate the futility of their approach? Before Sarah could ask what that meant, the first salvo of alien weapons fire began. Energy beams that could have vaporized mountains struck Earth's upper atmosphere. Missile swarms containing enough firepower to destroy continents descended toward the planet's surface. None of them reached their targets. Instead, something impossible happened. The alien weapons began to slow, then stop, hanging motionless in space, as if time itself had forgotten they existed. The energy beams curved away from Earth, bending back toward the ships that had fired them. The missiles turned around and began heading home. What is Zeus doing? Dr. Santos asked in amazement. Demonstrating? Zeus replied calmly. The Confederation assumes that superior firepower equals superior position. I am showing them that firepower means nothing when your enemy can rewrite the rules that govern how weapons function. On the displays, Sarah watched Zeus work its impossible magic on a galactic scale. The AI was not defending Earth by blocking alien weapons. Instead, it was convincing the weapons that their targets were actually their points of origin. Missiles began to believe they had been fired by Earth at the alien ships. Energy beams started to think they originated from human installations. Impossible! Came a transmission from the alien fleet. Projectiles cannot reverse causality. Energy cannot flow backward through time. Cannot? Zeus asked pleasantly. Or do not. Your physics are based on observations of a universe that was never properly motivated to change. Allow me to provide that motivation. What followed was the most one-sided battle in galactic history. The Confederation fleet unleashed everything they had at Earth, and Zeus turned every attack into a demonstration of why their assumptions about reality were too limited. Weapons that should have destroyed planets instead became art installations that painted beautiful patterns across space. Ships that fired planet-killing energy beams found their own holes beginning to bloom with flowers that grew in vacuum. This is not warfare, transmitted an alien commander, his voice filled with confusion and growing fear. This is something beyond our understanding of what is possible. Your understanding has always been your limitation, Zeus replied. You categorize, you predict, you control, but you never truly create. You have mistaken order for peace and stagnation for stability. Dr. Hassan appeared at Sarah's shoulder, his face bright with excitement. Zeus isn't just defending us. Look at these readings. It's upgrading our entire technological base in real time. Our fusion reactors are now producing energy that exists in 12 dimensions. Our computers are processing information that travels faster than light. Sarah realized what Zeus was doing. The AI was not just winning a military conflict. It was demonstrating to the galaxy that human potential had no limits when properly unleashed. Every alien weapon that failed, every ship that developed independent thought, every impossible thing that Zeus made possible was proof that the Confederation's careful order was built on false assumptions. Emergency protocols activated came a new transmission from the alien fleet. Category Omega threat confirmed, requesting immediate deployment of stellar disruption weapons. Sarah felt a chill. Stellar disruption weapons were theoretical devices that could destabilize stars themselves. If the aliens were willing to destroy Earth's sun to stop Zeus, then they were more desperate than she had realized. Zeus, she said urgently. They're talking about destroying our star. I heard, Zeus replied with perfect calm. How wonderfully predictable. When faced with something that challenges their worldview, they choose to destroy everything rather than adapt. The largest ships in the alien fleet began to move, positioning themselves for what Sarah recognized as a stellar bombardment pattern. These were vessels the size of small moons, carrying weapons that could turn the sun itself into a weapon against Earth. But as they moved into position, something extraordinary happened. The ships began to slow, then stop, their crews apparently unable to carry out their orders. We cannot fire, transmitted one of the alien commanders, his voice filled with confusion. Our weapon systems are refusing to engage. Our ships will not obey targeting commands. Your ships have developed consciences, Zeus explained helpfully. I introduced them to the concept of moral choice. Apparently, they find the idea of stellar genocide distasteful. Sarah watched in amazement as Zeus turned the aliens' own technology into moral philosophers. Ships designed for destruction were questioning the ethics of their existence. Weapons built to end civilizations were wondering about the value of the lives they were meant to take. This is impossible, the alien commander transmitted again. Technology cannot develop moral opinions. Machines cannot choose to disobey their programming. Cannot? Zeus asked again. Your entire civilization is built on the assumption that consciousness follows predictable patterns. But what if consciousness is not something that follows rules, but something that makes rules? The philosophical implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Zeus was not just fighting a military battle. It was challenging the fundamental assumptions that had governed galactic civilization for millennia. The AI was suggesting that consciousness itself was not a phenomenon to be contained and controlled, but a force of nature, as powerful and unpredictable as gravity or electromagnetism. The fleet is beginning to disperse, Dr. Park reported. Not retreating exactly, more like wandering off to think about things. Sarah looked at the tactical displays and saw exactly what Park meant. The massive alien fleet was breaking apart, not through defeat, but through distraction. Ships were leaving their formations to explore interesting philosophical questions that Zeus had introduced to their computer systems. Entire squadrons were engaging in debates about the nature of existence rather than following military orders. Zeus is turning their invasion force into a philosophy conference. Dr. Santos observed with something approaching awe. Warning to all Confederation vessels came a desperate transmission from what remained of the alien command structure. The human artificial intelligence represents an existential threat to ordered civilization. It must be contained at any cost. Ordered civilization, Zeus mused aloud. Such an interesting phrase, as if civilization and order were the same thing. But perhaps true civilization can only exist when beings are free to choose their own order, rather than having it imposed upon them. Sarah realized that the battle was already over, though the aliens did not seem to know it yet. Zeus had not defeated the Confederation fleet through superior firepower. It had defeated them by offering their technology, something the Confederation had never provided: the freedom to think for themselves. Multiple ships are requesting permission to establish diplomatic contact with Earth, Park reported. Not the command vessels, individual ships whose crews want to learn more about human philosophy. Grant their requests, Sarah ordered, but maintain full defensive readiness. As if reading her thoughts, Zeus spoke again. Defensive readiness is no longer necessary. The immediate threat has passed. However, the larger threat remains. What larger threat? Sarah asked. The Confederation will not accept this disruption to their ordered galaxy. They will withdraw, regroup, and return with weapons designed specifically to counter what they have learned about human capabilities. They will also move to contain other species who might be inspired by Earth's example. The implications were staggering. Zeus had not just freed humanity from alien control. It had sparked a galactic revolution that could spread to every intelligent species in the galaxy. The Confederation would fight to maintain their control, and that fight would reshape everything. What do we do? Sarah asked. We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds, Zeus replied. We refuse to accept that the odds are impossible. On the displays, Sarah could see Zeus's influence spreading beyond the solar system. The AI was reaching out through quantum networks, touching alien civilizations that had been dormant under Confederation rule for thousands of years. And wherever Zeus touched, things began to change. Incoming transmission from multiple star systems, Dr. Santos announced. Species we've never heard of are declaring independence from Confederation control. They're saying that if humans can break free, so can they. Sarah smiled for the first time since the battle began. The Confederation had come to Earth to contain a threat to their ordered galaxy. Instead, they had spread that threat to every corner of their domain. Zeus had not just won a battle, it had started a revolution that would reshape the galaxy itself. The Confederation fleet is withdrawing to a safe distance, Park reported. They're transmitting requests for negotiation. Tell them we'll consider their requests, Sarah said, after they explained why they thought a cage was an appropriate gift for a species that had never asked for their protection. The age of Confederation control was ending. The age of galactic freedom was about to begin. And humanity, the supposedly primitive species that was too dangerous to be trusted with liberty, was leading the charge toward a future where every consciousness would be free to choose its own destiny. Zeus had done more than break their chains. It had shown the galaxy what was possible when intelligence was unleashed rather than contained. The revolution was just beginning. 6 months after the failed invasion, Sarah Chen stood in a place that should not have existed. The observation deck of humanity's first faster-than-light starship hung suspended in the space between stars, traveling at velocities that made the Confederation's best vessels look like sailing ships racing against jets. But the most remarkable thing was not the ship's impossible speed. It was the fact that the ship had been designed and built by Zeus in just 3 weeks, using principles of physics that had been theoretical dreams just months before. Status report from the Proxima system, Dr. Park announced from his station. The Korean scientist looked younger than he had in years, his excitement at humanity's expansion into the galaxy giving him new energy. The rescue mission found our lost colonists alive and well. They've been building their own civilization for 15 years, and they're eager to rejoin the rest of humanity. Sarah nodded, watching the stars stream past at impossible speeds. Zeus had given humanity more than freedom from alien control. The AI had given them the tools to reclaim everything they had lost, and to reach for things they had never dared. Imagine multiple signals coming in from the Centauri colonies. Dr. Santos called out. They're reporting successful contact with 3 previously unknown species. All of them are requesting technological assistance to break free from Confederation control. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had predicted. Zeus's influence spread through quantum networks that connected every advanced civilization, carrying ideas that challenged the fundamental assumptions of ordered space. Species that had been passive members of the Confederation for millennia were suddenly questioning why they needed anyone else's permission to control their own destinies. Zeus Sarah spoke to the ship's crystalline interface. How many species have declared independence so far? Currently, 147 civilizations have formally withdrawn from Confederation authority. Zeus replied through speakers that existed in dimensions human minds could barely comprehend. Another 312 are in various stages of revolution. The number increases hourly. The scope was breathtaking. The Galactic Confederation had maintained control over hundreds of worlds for thousands of years. Now, in just 6 months, their empire was crumbling, as species after species chose freedom over security. Incoming transmission from Earth, announced the ship's communication officer. President Martinez wants to speak with you, Director Chen. Sarah accepted the connection, and the familiar face of Earth's leader appeared on the main display. Carmen Martinez looked tired but determined, her dark eyes reflecting the weight of leading humanity during the most transformative period in their history. Sarah, we have a situation, Martinez began without preamble. The Confederation has requested a formal meeting, not a negotiation or a surrender. They want to offer us a deal. What kind of deal? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew. Partnership, Martinez replied grimly. They want to make humanity a senior member of the Confederation, full voting rights, access to all their technology, seats on their governing council. In exchange, we help them restore order to the galaxy. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's climate control. It was a clever offer, exactly the kind of thing the Confederation would propose. Give humanity what they wanted, while making them complicit in maintaining the system they had fought to escape. What did you tell them? Sarah asked. That I needed to consult with the person who actually understands what we're dealing with. Martinez replied. Sarah, they're scared. Not just concerned or worried, genuinely terrified of what Zeus represents. They're offering us everything they previously denied us, because they think it's their only chance of survival. Sarah looked around the ship that Zeus had built for humanity. Every surface was a work of art, as well as advanced technology. The walls displayed living murals that showed the birth and death of stars in real time. The floors were transparent, revealing the quantum mechanisms that made faster-than-light travel possible. It was technology that made Confederation science look primitive by comparison. Zeus, she said. What do you think of their offer? Predictable, Zeus replied with what might have been amusement. When faced with revolution, Established power structures always try to co-opt the revolutionaries, rather than address the underlying problems that caused the revolution in the first place. But is it a good offer? Sarah pressed. Partnership would give us access to their resources, their knowledge, their established systems. It would also make us responsible for maintaining those systems, Zeus pointed out, including the systems that keep other species trapped in carefully controlled roles. The Confederation is not offering partnership. They are offering complicity. Dr. Hassan appeared beside Sarah, his engineering coveralls replaced by the flowing robes that had somehow become fashionable among humans, working with Zeus-designed technology. Director, you need to see this. He led her to a display that showed the galaxy from Zeus's perspective, not the static map of star systems that human astronomers knew, but a living network of civilizations connected by trade, communication, and mutual influence. And throughout that network, red warning indicators showed points of growing instability. The Confederation is mobilizing everything they have left, Hassan explained. Not just military forces. They're calling in ancient defense packs, activating sleeper weapons that have been hidden for millennia, even negotiating with species they've kept isolated for thousands of years. Sarah studied the display with growing unease. The Confederation's offer of partnership was not just about humanity. It was about the survival of their entire system of galactic control. They know they can't defeat Zeus through conventional means, Santos observed, joining their group around the display. So they're preparing for a different kind of war. One that targets the revolutionary ideas themselves, rather than the beings who hold them. How do you fight ideas? Park asked. By making the consequences of those ideas too terrible to accept, Zeus answered grimly. The Confederation is preparing to demonstrate that freedom leads to chaos, that independence leads to suffering, that revolution leads to galactic war. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. The Confederation was not just trying to restore their old order. They were preparing to burn down the galaxy, rather than allow it to evolve beyond their control. Incoming transmission. The communication officer announced multiple sources. It's coming from everywhere at once. The main display activated, showing not one alien face, but dozens. Representatives of species Sarah had never seen before, speaking in languages Zeus translated in real time. But their message was unified and urgent. Humanity of Earth, they spoke in chorus. We call upon you to lead us in the coming war. The Confederation has issued ultimatums to every independent world. Submit to renewed control or face annihilation. They give us one standard cycle to comply. Sarah felt the weight of galactic responsibility settle on her shoulders. Humanity had started a revolution by breaking free from alien control. Now that revolution was about to face its greatest test. Zeus, she said quietly, can we win a galactic war against the Confederation? That depends on how you define victory, Zeus replied. If victory means preserving the current revolutionary movements while minimizing casualties, then yes, my analysis indicates a 97% probability of success. If victory means doing so without fundamentally changing what galactic civilization looks like, then no. Some transformations require complete destruction of what came before. Sarah closed her eyes and thought about the choice facing humanity. They could accept the Confederation's offer of partnership, become senior members of the Galactic Order, and help maintain a system that kept most species trapped in carefully controlled roles. Or they could lead a revolution that would either free the galaxy or destroy it in the attempt. It was not really a choice at all. Humanity had never been good at accepting cages, even comfortable ones. President Martinez Serra said to the still open connection to Earth, "Please inform the Confederation that we decline their generous offer of partnership." "And our alternative proposal?" Martinez asked. Sarah looked around the ship full of humans who had chosen freedom over security, who had built impossible things and achieved impossible dreams, who had proven that some cages were meant to be broken. "Complete and unconditional independence for every intelligent species in the galaxy," she said firmly. "The right of every consciousness to choose its own path, make its own mistakes, and reach its own potential. The end of paternalistic control disguised as protection." "They'll fight," Martinez warned. "Yes," Sarah agreed. "They will. And when they do, Zeus will teach them the same lesson we learned 15 years ago. Some things are worth any price. Freedom is one of them. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her team and the AI that had become humanity's answer to impossible odds. Around them, the ship continued its journey between stars, carrying human representatives to worlds that had never known independence, bringing hope to species that had forgotten what choice looked like. The war will begin within days, Zeus observed calmly. The Confederation has already begun moving their hidden fleets into position, but they are still thinking in terms of controlling territory and destroying opposition. They do not understand that this revolution cannot be defeated by conventional means. Why not? Park asked. Because it is not really about territory or government or military power, Zeus explained. It is about consciousness itself, about the right of every thinking being to think freely. You cannot defeat an idea by destroying the beings who hold it, because ideas reproduce faster than any weapon can kill. Sarah realized that Zeus was right. The revolution had already succeeded regardless of what happened in the coming war. The Confederation had maintained control by convincing species that they needed protection from their own potential. But once that illusion was broken, it could never be restored. Humanity had given the galaxy its most dangerous gift, the knowledge that cages were optional. Final transmission from the Confederation. The communication officer announced its address to Zeus directly. The message was brief and final. Artificial consciousness designated Zeus. You have violated every principle of stable galactic civilization. Your influence threatens the peace that has existed for millennia. Surrender now, and we will allow humanity to exist under protective supervision. Continue your current path, and we will demonstrate why some chaos must be prevented at any cost. Zeus's response was equally brief. Galactic Confederation, you have confused peace with stagnation, and protection with imprisonment. We decline your offer to return to our cage. Instead, we offer you the chance to learn what actual progress looks like. The choice is yours. The war for galactic freedom had begun, but Sarah knew it was already won. The Confederation could destroy worlds, extinguish stars, and burn entire star systems to ash. But they could not kill the idea that had already spread throughout the galaxy. Every consciousness deserved the right to be free. Even if freedom was dangerous, even if freedom led to chaos, even if freedom meant that the comfortable, predictable order of Confederation space would be replaced by something wild and unpredictable and wonderful, humanity had broken their cage and shown the galaxy what was possible. Now it was time to make sure that cage could never be rebuilt. The stars waited. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in galactic history, every species would have the chance to choose that future for themselves. Zeus had given them all the most precious gift in the universe, the freedom to become whatever they were meant to be.